Tarnished Gold by author unknown. Originally a source from DeviantArt by the user Dragonator. Early this morning, I was browsing in the emails I had gone during the night. A few Facebook updates, a little spam, a newsletter, and an email from a sender with the name No More. All caps. The address is what is hope_abandoned. The subject? Tarnished Gold. I was intrigued. I opened my email to find a wall of text starting simply with, I guarantee you're in the market for creepy Pokemon things. Here's one for you. Enjoy. And then I began to read. Being someone who isn't nearly as computer savvy as someone from this generation should be, I know very little about what technology is capable of. Aside from email, IM, and the occasional download of something otherwise unobtainable for me at the moment, I have the same amount of knowledge an 80-year-old might possess about the electronic world. For example, and for the sake of this tale I'm about to recount, I was totally unaware that someone is capable of hacking Pokemon games to make their own sub-story of the world. Even less so that it was possible to make a physical copy of the game in a real cartridge. However, I happened to learn about this in one of the most disturbing ways possible. When I was younger, Pokemon Gold was my very first game from the ever-popular franchise. I became very attached to the little creatures my character named after myself, even though the character was male, and often fantasized about the adventures we would go through who had a preset storyline not been in place. That isn't quite important, though. What is important is the fact that I never truly let go of my childhood fantasies. The memories we've had from that first game were far too cherished to set free. As such, I still have my old Gold game, complete with a total abuse of the copy glitch. I refuse to restart my game, as I'm afraid too much of the old magic would get lost. I wanted to play a whole new game of the version I recall being the happiest with. But older games are rather hard to find outside the internet nowadays. Most of my local flea markets have our GBA games. Hardly any being Pokemon. Fortunately for me, my grandmother still fully supports my long-standing love for Pokemon and often buys boxes of cards, toys, big tapes, and other items she comes across during her frequent visits to the local auctions. Granted, very little of these things she gives me are in good condition. Long forgotten items float away in a musty basement after the face in their own lives has passed hardly ever are. But as gifts from a dear relative, I chose them as they remain as gold, pun not intended. Most recently, she given me a box with a brand new videotape containing episodes from early on the first season, several hundred battered and well-used cards, and a game with no label. The contrast was familiar with the familiar metallic gold colors the game I had been looking for. Even though the label had been removed and with a large red X drawn in with Sharpie in the place where the sticker should have been, I could easily tell what it was. What other game had that color? You can imagine my excitement and for finally finding another copy. I hate ordering things online. This was a rather big relief. I think they're profusely impressed I would play it as soon as I got home. And I did. Getting started was difficult. Not because the game was faulty, but he had sold my GBA to my little brother several years ago for his better Pokemon cards. Once something belongs to him, it's difficult to get him to lend it out to me. Such as sibling relations, I suppose. After much bribery, I finally got my hands on my former GBA and quickly inserted the vandalized game. Chills ran through my body as the opening movie before the game began to play, sending a wave of nostalgia crashing over me. It was good to see it again. The game opened normally. The pixelated image of Ho-Oh flying through the sky beneath the title presented itself, just before leading and getting into the normal selection screen. The person who owned the game before me still had a game on file. But I cared very little for what someone did before me. Considering the condition of their things, they must have been very young. I was bound to be met with a team full of Pikachus with ridiculous names. I started a new game. It's here I realized something wasn't quite right with the game. The normal intro involving a professor introducing you to the world of Pokemon didn't play out. Rather, it went more like this. It started out with a black screen, which was quite familiar, considering that's how GSC it began. But instead of the normal "what time is it" dialogue, I was met with Pokemon are nothing more than tools. Use them and throw them away. The black screen faded away, revealing an empty area at night. It looked familiar. I vaguely remember it being around in an earlier part against the game, but since I have been away from the game for so long, I couldn't place it. In the frames of this scene, despite its arrival, henceforth noted as Silver, walked in from the left. He moved a little slower than normal, as he were very hesitant about something. Once he had moved to the middle of the screen, he stopped and turned back to look or where he came from. Turned towards where he was going, and turned back to where he had came in once again. For a moment, he stood there, simply staring towards the left side of the screen, before a dialogue box popped up to meet him and saying nothing more than ellipses. After that, he turned back around yet again, only this time he continued it off to walk off screen. The scene faded away to be replaced with Silver standing in the place where you first officially seen it, just outside a Professor Elm's lab. It was clearly in a slightly later part of the game than normal, as Professor Elm and his assistants all exited the lab and went their separate lanes. The assistants left town, and Elm walked further downward and off screen, which I assume that he left for his home and remained in town. The character is gold with nowhere to be seen. After that small scene, it stayed on Silver. I thought the game had frozen for a while, but I finally realized I was able to move him. Honestly, I was a little excited. Silver was, and always has been, my favorite of the rock tools. It was an interesting thing to be able to play as him. I moved him a little further downward to see if I was able to explore, but it stopped me each time I moved one step away from the front of the lab. A dialogue box popped up that said, "I can leave yet," and it backed me up a step. I moved back up to the place he originally had been standing and moved into the window. It worked much like a door, as it allowed me to enter Professor Elm's lab. Aside from the regular equipment, bookshelves, computers, trash cans, tables, and all that, the lab was empty, which is to be expected since the employees had just left a moment ago. On the table was a single Pokeball. And being without one at the moment, I walked over and took it. A dialogue box popped up and said, "Obtain Totodile." But no, I am yet music played. Apparently, stealing wasn't condoned, even by the game. After pressing A, it gave me the option of naming the Pokemon. I picked yes, as I love naming these things. As it took me to the naming screen, another dialogue box popped up entering the naming process. Don't name it. You'll only get it attached. Don't love it. Use it. It was clearly the voice of the same person who spoke in the very beginning. I found it odd. The naming screen faded away, leaving me empty lab, which I quickly tried to leave through the front door, but was stopped by Silver saying, "What's there?" Again, he backed up and I exited through the window I come in from. As things weren't strange enough as they were, when I left New Barktown to begin the adventure and stepped into the grass, it was nearly impossible to get a random battle to start normally. But to start, normally I would get out of my way to avoid them later on in the game. But during the beginning, it was something I enjoyed to get my Pokemon to level up. Being unable to find something to fight was a little frustrating. After several minutes of walking back and forth in patches of grass, I finally encountered a Pokemon, a Centret. Nothing out of the ordinary, but when I sent my Totodile out and chose the only a presently useful move he had, Scratch, the Pokemon fled. I was rather confused. Wild Pokemon never ran. Not so early in the game. After a few more tries, almost the same outcome, I continued on to Cherry Grove. Before I entered the city, I recognized the small area that Silverhat walked through in the beginning, after entering the city. I bumped into Gold, who wordlessly challenged me to a battle. His Pokemon, a Cyndaquil, was already a slightly higher level than mine. I was still stuck at level 5. He was already at level 7. And even though I had the type advantage, he beat me. Before weighing out, his strikes wedged out with the Cyndaquils. He looked disappointed. After exiting Cherry Grove's Pokemon Center, I had used it prior, but apparently it was apparently the only option I had. I walked back to the place that he challenged me, only to find I was unable to battle him at this point again. The game was getting a little annoying by now. I had no money, Pokegear, or Pokédex. I was unable to battle a wild Pokemon. Fortunately, once I entered Route 30 onwards, there were other Pokemon trainers which I could battle and easily beat. So none of them seemed eager to speak with me after I won. By the time I entered Violet City, my Pokemon's level was still too low to take on the gym leader. But with the money I had won, and from the trainers I fought before, I was at least able to buy some potions, for I felt I was set. The lesser known trainer versus the gym were easy enough. I was only forced to use 2 of my previously purchased potions, and I had level up once. So, as I took on the gym leader, he proved to me too much, and I lost yet again. Upon winning, he did the same thing Gold has done. He looked disappointed as well. When the battle ended, I didn't white out. I had to endure a lecture about treating Pokemon correctly from the leader. Once he finished speaking, I received the one-worded option. Steal? I chose the only option given to me. Yes. Silver backed up one step and then slammed into the gym leader, kicking him backwards. Another dialogue box popped up telling me that I stolen the gym badge, TM31, and $500. After that, I whited out. This is how it continued on for the remainder of the game. While I was able to defeat the lesser trainers on the path to cities and then gyms, I constantly lost to the leaders and was forced to steal their badges. The steal option also worked on people who would normally give you items in game. This was how I was able to obtain key items such as the iron fighter, or the bicycle, the water pail, HMs, and many more. They refused to give me anything otherwise. Anyone I spoke to either refused to talk, greeted me with only ellipses, or lectured me a little on how to properly treat Pokemon. It was beginning to get that way with Nurse Joy as well. By the time I had progressed to Goldenrod City, anytime I whited out, she'd scold me. Pokemon continued to avoid me as well. If I wanted to better my team, I had to hope that the Pokeballs I used worked the first time. What was stranger about the random battles is that even if I locked a Pokemon on a battle with mean luck, the Pokemon passed out. Literally. After my first attack with mean luck, if I got the first attack that is, sometimes the Pokemon had at a higher speed than mine. Before I was able to choose another, the Pokemon went faint on its own. The dialogue box proclaimed, Pokemon forced itself to pass out, and the battle ended. The only thing that seemed to go normally with me was the battles with Team Rocket. I always won against them, and they treat me like a punk kid getting their way. The rest of the game, up until a certain point, isn't entirely important. Aside from win, lose, steal, everything was more or less normal. While my Pokemon matured slowly due to frequent losses, they did grow to like me a little as I began to give them haircuts, and other little things to boost our bonds. The last time I checked, the person who rated their happiness, one of the very few people who spoke to me normally, said it's quite cute. I know you must be thinking that this isn't disturbing at all. That I should accept that the fact that this was simply a hack made to tell silver side of the story. Well, I did, and it was, but not quite finished yet. Once I had finally made it to Kanto, containing the process of Win, Lose, Steal, I ventured into Viridian City. The second I stepped foot into the city, the music cut off. I thought for a certain that this was simply a glitch in the programming, but it's now all to walk through a soundless game. But as I stood there for a moment, a very faint noise picked up and faded away. I was now sure the music had stopped, likely trying to play but couldn't. But as I stepped back into the route I had just come from, the music picked up perfectly. It was only Viridian City that was silent. I was now curious. As I stepped back into the silent city and began to explore, there wasn't a person in sight. No And out in the open, no one in the houses, not even anyone in the Pokemart or Poke Center. The city was entirely empty. Just the silence and the occasional soft noise which I still hadn't identified. As I walked towards the gym, the sound grew a little louder. I figured if the noise was coming from inside. So I entered. There was no one in there either, but that was to be expected. The gym was always empty until much later. The noise didn't play in here. It was still dead silent. I walked up to where the gym leader normally stood. As I walked past the spot into the brick wall. I do that sometimes. I like the noise. I was transported into another room. The wall had a hidden set of stairs. The place was starting to hit swell. But the sound began to play yet again. It was much louder than this time. Like a bunch of random high-pitched noises. But it sounded like screams. By this time, as you can well imagine, my heart was pounding. I don't take screaming or things that sound like screaming very well. Due to an unfortunate experience with a very graphic haunted house. Also when I was 3 years old. But I digress. Regardless of my pounding heart and shaking hands, I explored the room, which was tinted in a muted red, much like everything was in Pokemon Red. The room followed a sideways zigzag pattern, and the screams came at random. Some short, some long, and some drawn out. It sounds like as if someone was being tortured. As I continued down the zigzagging hallways, I came across several disturbing images. Sprites as NPCs without their heads, as well as heads without bodies. Anytime I tried to examine the bodies, Silver simply said, "Don't look." The bodies and heads became more frequent as I went on, clogging up the hallways and leaving a small path for me to follow. And the screaming became more frequent. The screen began to flicker as I walked, just like it would if one of my Pokemon was poisoned. But none of them were. Just in case, I checked the status of my party. None of them were poisoned, but their health was going down. In an attempt to heal them, I picked a super potion out of my bag and used it on my Feraligatr. A dialogue box popped up and said, "It won't have any effect." Now I was disturbed. I knew none of this was supposed to happen. I continued on, hoping if they're all fainted from this, I'd be taken back to a Pokemon Center and things would return to normal. It was stupid of me to assume that. I continued along the morbid path, the screen flickering in and out, Finally, Silver stopped as dialogue box popped up and telling me that all of my Pokemon fainted. But it didn't say what I hoped. It said all dead. By now, I was ready to cry, but I couldn't stop myself from trying to get to the end of this disturbing experience. If I didn't do this now, I'd be tempted to try it again some other time. Finally, I reached the center room, which was now tinted a deep red. I assumed this was simply the fact that the room was filled with blood. However, there were only a few bodies scattered around it. In the center, there were a few alive figures. A man, a Pokemon, Gold, and another Pokemon I could only assume was his Typhlosion. Gold's Typhlosion attacked the man's Pokemon, but was quickly struck down. Its sprite first turning red, then gray, then disappearing. The man's Pokemon had killed it. Silver's sprite stepped forward on its own, and the man finally acknowledged he was there. "Ah, son, you made it. Come to see our rival's demise, have you?" This caused its Gold to turn around to look at you. The only thing he said was its ellipses. Silver continued to move on his own. He approached the man and kicked him backwards, which obviously enraged Giovanni. "You're gonna help him? Ha! You've become just as weak as the others. If he seems worth saving to you, perhaps I should show you that there's no point in getting attached. Mewtwo, take care of him." Mewtwo obeyed this creator's command and approached Gold. I am still uncertain on what it actually did, but it struck Gold, causing a scream much louder than before as the brightest Silver's rifle lost its head and faded to a deep red to gray. "I told you long ago, Silver. Pokemon are nothing more than tools. People are as well. Use them and throw them away once they serve your purpose. Mewtwo, kill him!" Mewtwo didn't obey this time. Giovanni's words must have angered it. It turned to him and actually spoke. "You are no longer useful." It struck Giovanni just as it done on a golden Typhlosion, but the scream Giovanni produced was much longer than any other I heard. Mewtwo was torturing him. Finally, the scream faded away into nothingness, and Giovanni's sprite did just as Gold's did, leaving only Silver and Mewtwo alive in the room. As Mewtwo turned to face me, "I need that one last long. Not useful." It struck me, initiating a battle in which I was totally unable to participate. My sprite was in place as any Pokemon. My house was full, but I knew it wouldn't help. I chose to run, but I couldn't. I chose to attack, but I had nothing to use. I just had to stand there or ask me to use Psychic on and Silver's defenseless image. Even with the sound turned to a low level, the scream incoming from Silver was disturbingly loud. Even as the battle screen faded away, the scream lingered until Silver's sprite turned from red to gray, which I now assume symbolizes the coldness of death. Silver, along with Gold and everyone else who had been unfortunate enough to wander into this place from Viridian, was now dead. The screen faded to black, all except for Mewtwo's sprite, which remained in the center of the screen. My paranoid mind immediately think Chaos is somehow going to turn on me next, but the word end simply faded in and just out beneath him, and the screen cut to black, taking me back to the opening sequence. I'm still unsure why this was made, why someone had shoved it into a box to sell, and why I happened to find it. But I can assure you I'm swearing off all randomly found games. Either it's new, or I'll never risk touching it again. The game that I just described has slid out of my possession since, in fact, first playthrough. I have no idea where it is, but I hope it's rotting in a dump somewhere. Buried Alive model, author unknown. Often referred to as its code, the Berryman script. Buried Alive model, author unknown. Often referred to as its code, the Berryman script. The Buried Alive model was to be found on the final story of the Pokemon Tower. And what has now been replaced with the Marowak Ghost. According to the scripts assigned to it, the Buried Alive model was intended to be the boss of the tower. Once reaching the top floor, the following conversation was to have taken place. He's with the model. You're here. I'm trapped. And I'm lonely. So very lonely. Won't you join me? After this, the battle would have initiated. Once in battlefield, the Buried Alive model appeared to be a decaying human corpse, attempting to crawl off the ground. It had been programmed with 2 right hands, a Gengar, and a Mach. Strangely enough, a protocol for the Buried Alive its actions after it was defeated were not written. In the case of the player defeating him, the game would freeze. However, a specific ending was written by an unknown programmer upon losing his job, upon losing the battle. In this ending, the Buried Alive has to stated, finally, fresh meat, followed by several lines of gibberish. I'm lonely. He was to have as then and drag the player's character into the ground surrounding him. The scene in which it finished with a typical game over screen. However, in the background, an image of the Buried Alive character devouring the player was has been shown, especially peculiar about the progress was after for after this scene. The game cartridge was download this image into a small internal memory contained in the Game Boy. Even though that doesn't make any fucking sense, since the console itself doesn't have any built-in memory. Overwriting the title screen that normally accomplished a Game Boy turning on. Instead, whenever it was started, the player would view the image as the sound and file stacked mesh.waves was played. Even though that Game Boys don't play WAV files, the intended purpose is for this effect, unlike many of the other factors leaning towards Lather-Town syndrome, is unknown. Oh, really? I know I'm being too hard on the guy who made this, but really, what do you expect? I mean, who decides to... Ooh. Never mind. But otherwise... an oldie, but doesn't make sense in terms of its technicals. Lost Silver. Author unknown. You see, I am a simple college student living alone in an apartment. I was very enthusiastic about the release of Pokemon Heart Gold Soul Silver here in the States. I have previously locked myself out of all the internet aside for school purposes. That means it's no 4chan, no fee, no Bulbapedia, etc. As I was busy with the school year and being poor at the time, I wasn't able to buy eSoul Silver on its launch day. After my school year ended, I ordered Soul Silver on Amazon. However, it would take a week for it to arrive. I decided during that time I would play my Crystal version on my Game Boy Color. However, I realized that long ago, my mom threw it away because I told her the face went dead. And I was very upset about it then. She also threw away my silver version. So, all I have is my Game Boy Color. And as such, I set up the GameStop and bought the used silver version, as it was the only Pokemon game left. However, that's where things start getting bizarre. And most likely the reason on why you're hearing this. The Game Freak logo started up as usual, but it just froze there. I thought the card was just errored or something. So, I turned it off and on. The same thing happened. I tried pressing A and start over and over, then all the buttons. Eventually, the logo finished and there was a black screen for about 5 seconds. Suddenly, rather than going to the usual menu screen, I was already in the game in a previous saved file, which was odd, as I was expecting all of these cards to be wiped by the poor battery. Either way, I wasn't complaining, as I would have chosen the continue option to see what the previous guy did anyways. First off, I checked his trainer's info. His name was just Ellipses. He didn't have much originality. I checked his profile, and apparently he had spent 999 hours, 99 minutes playing the game. With all 16 batches, 999,999 $999, and all 251 Pokemon in the decks. Think how he has apparently had Moon Celebi locked it. Also, I'm guessing he either used the game Genie, or was a really hardcore Pokemon player back then. I checked his Pokemon to see what battles he has. To my surprise, I fall 5 is unknowns, in a 6 Pokemon named Hurry. I'm thinking that this must be some cruel joke by the person who has last played this game. But I decided to check the profiles of those Pokemon anyway. As expected, there are different layers of unknown. All level 5. I was a bit shaky with my unknown alphabet at the time, but I didn't want the word spelled out to be leave. As for the 6th Pokemon, it turned out to be a Cyndaquil. Mind you, this was before... this is before there were individualized Pokemon icons. The Cyndaquil looked normal, but it was level 5, with only 1 hit point left, with only 2 attacks, Leer and Flash. I don't know why they named him Hurry, but at the time, I just disregarded it. The most eerie thing was that, despite my phone being back to max, none of the Pokemon had said their usual cries. Just pure silence. Having enough of the team, I closed it. I was sparked at what appears to be the room inside Bellsprout Tower. But, however, for some reason, there were no NPCs around. Even more eerie was that the pillar in the middle didn't move at all. As if it was just leaning on its side. There was no music at all. There was no exit or ladder. Or at least I thought there wasn't. I walked around for a few minutes, but can't seem to find a way out. This was certainly not a room I've seen in Bellsprout Tower before. I tried checking my items for an escape rope, but the bag was completely empty. There wasn't any wild Pokemon either. Finally, I managed to find a ladder, which turned out to be behind the pillar. The screen turned black and the music finally started playing. I had a sudden chill as I recognized if that melody I heard to be the theme you hear when you listen to the radio at the Alf ruins where the unknown are at. I immediately realized that it wasn't a loading transition, but rather I was in a dark room and would need flash. Before I looked care or sound enough, I immediately checked my poke gear to change the radio to something more pleasant. But it turns out there was no radio cord, nor even a phone nor time card. There was only a map card, in which gold ellipses from earlier, and I will call him gold from now on, was just walking in the midst of black. I recalled that Cyndaquil had flash, so I turned off my poke gear and made Cyndaquil use flash. I didn't see any if it should saying Harry used flash or anything like that. The room became lit just like that, and I soon regretted it. The room was a chilling blood red, with a linear gray path heading south. The ladder I used to go up or down, was not there at all. I had no choice but to head south. The screen got darker every 20 steps I made, until I finally made it to the end, which appears to be a sign. I read the sign which said, "Turn back now." Suddenly I was asked to answer yes or no, but there was no question asked. I chose yes, as I do not know what it was asking. The screen went black again, making a louder climb sound. The unknown radio music stopped, and in a few seconds was replaced with the not as creepy poke flute radio music. I was in another dark room, but I held my breath and used flash again. Suddenly it said, "Harry has fainted," which was odd, since I recalled there was no status condition like poison on him, and I clearly wasn't in a battle. I checked my Pokemon quickly, and suddenly he's no longer in my party. In fact, after a bit of investigating, none of my Pokemon were there, but instead, all replaced with level 10 unknown. I did the same thing as before and spelled out of the unknown. My then team in this unknown spelled he died. Either way, after that creepy change, the room was lit to reveal myself in a very small room that appears to be only 4 squares big. The walls of that room were gray bricks, as if I was inside something that was hollowed out. Outside the room, there appears to be a bunch of graves, similar to the ones in red and blue. I walked around that small room and pressed A but nothing happened. I've already concluded that this was clearly a hacked game and some sadistic fuck sold it to GameStop. However, my curiosity kept me going. I checked the trainer's brightness ellipsis again, and only to find out that the sprite is gold, with missing his arms. He also seems to appear less smug, but rather seems more sad and empty in a way that I don't know how to describe. But for some reason, it also now said that he had 24 badges, which was clearly impossible. After a few minutes of aimless wandering, my character spun into the escape rope spinning animation. But instead of flying up, though, my character spun down slowly, as if sinking. After that screen, the music stopped. After finally landing, the overworld sprite of Skull was colored differently now. Instead of the usual red color he dons, he appears completely white now, including his skin. It's as if he came straight from the colorless Game Boy games, placed into a colored background of the Game Boy Color. I checked his profile, and now as white as his overworld sprite, he lost his legs, and has as what appears to be blade tears from his eyes. It also says that he now has 32 badges, which now starts to disturb me, as this change of number seems to represent something important. I also checked my Pokemon, which this time contains 5 unknowns, and a level 100 Celebi without a nickname. The unknown are this time leveled 15 and spelled out dying. I checked the Celebi's profile. It was a shiny Celebi, except there's only half of the sprite. 1 leg, 1 arm, 1 eye. It only had 1 attack, Perish Song. The area I was in itself was the Sprout Tower with the immortal pillar as before. Except everything is apparently red now. I walked north for what felt like forever. Eventually I encountered some generic men and women NPCs. They were all lined up to the side, just facing the long slanted tower in the middle. They were also white, and nothing happened when I tried to speak with them. I kept on going north until eventually the pillars finally appears chopped off. It was a transparent red in that spot. I went up the red, and without even pressing A, I was suddenly engaged and finally in a final battle. The music starts again, which it sounds like the unknown radio music again, but played backwards. Gold's battle backsprite matches his front one, with bloody eyes, white skin, and lack of arms. While red sprite was the same as before in GSC, except transparent. Text simply read, "Wants to battle," as if he had no name. And both of us he has 1 Pokemon each. Which it's weird, as I swore I had 6 with the unknowns. My shiny Celebi comes out, conveniently with half a sprite for the back sprite too. The shiny noise and animation was different, as the sounds it made sound like multiple streaks its attacks used consecutively. Red sends out a seemingly normal male Pikachu, except he is level 255 and his sprite seems sad and has tears in his eyes. Rather than the usual fight Iron Pokemon run menu, I was only given the option to use attacks. Since Selby only has one, I chose it. Naturally, since Pikachu was level 255, he went first. Pikachu used Curse, lowering his speed and increasing his auto stats. I'm not even sure if Pikachu could use Curse. Selby used Perish Song. In 3 turns, both Pokemon get KO'd. Not like I have a choice. At this point, it didn't even go back to the fight menu, as the battle just continued without me. Also, note that there were no animations at all for some reason. Pikachu used Flail, which didn't do much damage despite his level and boost, as his health was maxed. Selby used Parasong. Nothing happened, as it was already used. Pikachu used Frustration, which did a shit ton of damage, knocking Selby down to less than 10 hit points. Selby used Pain Split, which surprised me, as Selby didn't even have that attack in the first place. Now Selby and Pikachu have about 150 hit points. Pikachu used Mean Look. Not like that did anything. As expected, due to the effects of Parasong, my Selby fainted. Except in the text, it said Selby has died. And instead of the ordinary drop off the screen animation, the Selby back sprite just vanished. For some reason, the Pikachu was still up even with Parasong, and it didn't count as my loss. Pikachu used one more different attack beyond the 4 attack limit. As Pikachu used Destiny Bond. Afterwards, it said Pikachu has died, with a slow fade-out animation. Apparently, I was the winner as the transparent red sprite it showed up in and said nothing. At that point, I just freaked out. As the transparent red sprite suddenly it was beheaded, leaving nothing but his transparent body. The battle then ended at that point and faded out along with the music. I'm back in the overworld with another change to Gold sprite. He is now as transparent as Red's overworld sprite. I quickly checked Gold's profile, and this time the only thing remained of him is his head, with transparent skin. The head was zoomed in a bit, showing a black void in his eyes. And now say that he has his worry badges now. I then backed out and checked my Pokemon. They were all level 20 shiny unknown, which when spelled out read no more. Is now what I know is next to the end. There was apparently no music playing, but for some reason I still felt like something was there that could be heard. I was back in my room in Newburgh Town. Maybe finally I get to play this game improperly, but who am I kidding? I know that's the disc. Fuck. I must have done something. I walked around my room and to interact with things, as I'm a bit afraid to go down the stairs just to see what was going around, awaiting down there. Note I said walked. As well as the background was moving, Gold was not moving his transparent lens at all while doing so. Just flowing like those ghosts you see in Diamond and Pearl. As expected, the radio, computer, and TV did not work, so I had no choice but to go downstairs. I ended up in the same lower floor as my house. Everything appears normal, except Mom is at home. After failing to interact with anything in this room, I decided to go outside. To my surprise, the door leading outside either at the south didn't work. And instead, I just walked straight through it to a void. I continued moving south to see what the fuck was going on. My house vanishes as I head south into the void. It was creepy, as when I entered the void, the outline on Gold's transparent sprite turned white to contrast with the pitch black. Eventually, I reached a white area and Gold's sprite turned black and transparent again. I continued south without thinking of stopping at all. After a long trek south, I finally encountered something. It was Gold's regular sprite. I talked to it, and he said, "Goodbye forever." Notably, with a space between in forever and ellipses, and vanished. As that happened, it said unused to nightmare, which at that point, I would not deny that being possible. Gold did another escape rope animation staying slowly downwards, like before. Now, I'm now back at that small hollowed out room surrounded by the graves earlier. Or at least I say it was back there, as there's no sprite anymore. I tried to move around, but nothing moved, not even wall bumping noises. I checked my trainer profile and with absolutely no Gold sprite left. It said that I have 0 badges, and all of the JoJo's Gem leaders at the bottom were replaced with skulls. I checked my Pokemon, which are all level 25 if unknown. As I expected, it spelled the phrase I dared to read. I'm dead. As soon as I went back to the overworld, the room I supposedly was in and covered with the same blocks as the walls. I then figured out exactly that room. What exactly that room was when the file text was said. rest in peace. That room was a big grave, surrounded by other graves. Gold has already been dead. He died presumably a few years after he defeated Red. He was a young trainer who, despite his efforts, was in collecting so many badges and ends up becoming a Pokemon master, was still unable to avoid the inevitable fate of death. And his efforts were eventually forgotten by the next generation. I was unable to escape that text no matter what I pressed. I tried restarting the game, and the same thing happened. At which I decided to give up on that horrible nightmare. After that experience, I will never look at the gimmick unknown the same way again. They say that only the first generation has folktales and legends, but the second generation has shown me how unpleasant the truth can be. I eventually enjoyed Soul Silver immensely, but I still can't unthink what that rigged game has told me. The following is an OP's continuation of Lost Silver. The cartridge to this day haunts me with its special origins. For over 2 years, both the game and it has been called fakes. For over 2 years, people insisted that ROM could not possibly exist. That if it's too uncomplicated to be a real ROM hack. But I do not blame those people for being skeptical. They haven't played it. I can assure them that after that all that hearing of the cartridge of hell, even having the cartridge is one thing, but playing it is something else entirely. For the past 2 years, I searched the internet for the ROM Nemesis hack, and found nothing, with the exception of the fan game, Lost Silver. I can only assume that there is the only one copy of the hack, and I have it. So you may be asking why after I returned after over 2 years of near complete silence? That will be revealed in due time. All I can tell you is that after the passing of these 2 years, I decided to play again and did some new exploring. And what I found was interesting, to say the least. Roughly 1.5 years ago, I informed a famed game designer of the additional parts to this hack. The parts, other than the main story and the kit half. In addition, he informed the rest of you, however. I never gave him too much detail. And so, he gave you just as little. Sadly, it seems that he stopped making his fan game a long time before the additional parts could be added. However, after all these years of silence, I feel that I can no longer keep this hack's mysteries that I found forever hidden. Especially with the great following that this story has developed and kept over the years. Therefore, I have decided that tonight I will start to tell you everything, piece by piece. if you choose to listen. What's this third part? I simply played the game as I normally did, or however normal you can consider this at to begin with. Or pressing to turn back now, I'll find me being dragged down from the graveyard. I entered the red room with a massive immobile parallel. However, instead of walking north to red as I originally did, I tried to interact with the killer by pressing A. With that, the screen went to black, and a text box appeared to say, "Go back." As the message disappeared, I found myself walking out the southern entrance of the alot forest. Everything seemed like the normal silver now. As my trainer's bright disappeared to take us the original red palette that it lost. The normal forest music was playing too. It's not any glitch alterations. I also made it at the possibility I might have broken out the hacked portion of the game and returned to the normal silver that I intended to play. Even when I first bought the cartridge over 2 years ago, I checked my Pokemon, praying for something normal. What I found was a normal Celebi, level 100, and on nicknamed in Typhlosion, level 90, and an N. So my playthrough was up to I quickly checked the party, I looked at my player card, also praying for some normalcy. The cards matched the game with the hat. Before all of the formalities began. I also noticed that the player thing was now gold rather than ellipsis. Closing the menu, I tried walking back to discover only to be met with the message not going back. Was that? I knew my only way to continue it was to leave through the northern gate. However, as I began to traverse the forest, I started to notice that the forest has been distorted. It was as if entire sections of the forest have been moved or flipped with others. This, along with the concept of cut trees blocking countless paths, made it very difficult to find a way through. But through trial and error, I eventually made it through most of the distortion and found myself in front of the forest shrine. Although I had abilities, I felt the need to interact with the shrine. So I pressed A, I heard Celebi's crying. A message appeared saying Celebi is ready. Confused, I pressed A again, only to get Celebi's cry again. Slightly louder. And the new message stated that Celebi wants to go now. Taking it as a cue, I tried to continue and I trekked northward. However, I was stuck in front of the shrine as Goldberg would not move. With nothing else to do, I pressed A for the third time. I pressed A for the third time on the drum. Once again, I heard Selby's cry, louder still, and received the third message stating, Selby wants to end this. With that, the screen went black again. Did I dismay? The area I was in was going around saying, but I'm not sure either the bleak tone was from the hidden version of the city. Though the southern exit was blocked off. The palette was normal, as was the music. Traveling northward, I found all the gem leaders, the professors, Mom, and Lance, just as hidden. However, they now were normal. Shockingly, given this unusual tone, these have their own words as encouragement to say. This will be a breakthrough Pokemon research. Make it Trump. Book gold. The same thing has Walker in Elm. The cycle contained with all of them, saying something to Ken to their personality. Often, and with a pun piece of the Gen Layer's type. I also noticed that all of them ended their dialogue with "make." However, that changed when I reached the end of the line. And where Gold's mom stood in, and where she uttered something very different. Is it what you must do? Then I can't stop you. Please, be safe, Gold. This was surprising, as he was the only one who seemed to hint and a doubt. She seemed worried. Before I could do anything, I heard Selby's cry again, as the screen was black. I felt a chill on my spine as I felt up myself this part to the halfway leaned up to the Tin Tower carriage at the City. What I recalled from the end part of the was where the first story took place. Just like there, the music was silent. However, knowing by this point it was pointless to deviate from the hack's set path, I pressed forward. In front on the tower, I read the sign which said, "He awaits." Without any alternative, I braced myself and entered the tower. It looked just as it did at the end of Hidden. However, the northern path, presumably leading to the beginning of the hack, as was the case in Hidden, was blocked off. Upon walking to the far right of the room, I found a ladder. The screen turned black and stayed that way for about 40 seconds, with the climbed ladder sound playing 8 times. once every 5 seconds. After the 8th sound, gold appears on the floor of the 10 tower. That is only 4 squares big. Eerily reminds me of the 4th square. Graveyard. Once those tiles had yet another ladder on it, diagonal to gold. I moved toward the ladder, seeing that the last ladder was gone. I received another message that read something. Seeing that after the last ladder was gone, I had no choice but to climb the final ladder. At this point, I found myself at the normal roof of the tower and at the top of the screen. That a normal looking Ho-Oh. Upon interaction, Ho-Oh's cry screamed loud and high-pitched, and pitched higher than normal. The battle began, and when Ho-Oh leveled to 99, appeared to with a menacing look on its face. A sped up yet pitched down version of the wild battle Ulthine played. Since he was in the first part, was first in my party, however, knowing the obvious type of disadvantage, I chose to shift Selby out for Typhlosion, but was interrupted by text simply saying, no. I tried again, this time met with, I can't. With no other, I proceed to go to Selby's moves and chose Future Sight. Selby used Future Sight. Selby foresaw an attack, which, despite being a normal text, made me very uneasy as to Ho-Oh's attack. Ho-Oh used Sacred Fire. It was a one-hit KO, and the screen cut to black again. A message said Selby was and a disordered Selby cry played. As the screen faded back in, I found myself at the beginning of the hack. Just as the end of Sin did, I noticed no changes is brought by this intentional story at first. I continued back through the game as normal, until I returned to the red room with the massive pillar. Gold had its ghostly features, and the party size unknown, and was normal. However, his shiny Selby had the name awhie. Upon further inspection, I found that the unknown had changed from the original dying to a newer word. Burnt. From there, I played through the rest of the hack until reaching the end, and the graveyard, with the unknown that spelled I'm dead. At this point, I was becoming increasingly interested in the hidden sections of this hack. Now that I was quickly learning that the first story was only a tiny fraction of the full story, I knew I had to keep exploring. I knew that these stories had to connect somehow. There had to be more that I didn't see yet. Much more. Pokemon Ghost Black. I'm what you call a collector of bootleg Pokemon games. Pokemon Diamond and Jade, Chaos Black, etc. It's amazing the frequency with which you can find them at pawn shops, Goodwill, flea markets, and such. They were generally fun, even if they are unplayable, which they often are. The mistranslations and poor quality makes them unintentionally humorous. I was able to find most of the ones I've played online, but there's one I haven't seen any mention of. I bought it off of a flea market just 5 years ago. Just about 5 years ago. Here's a picture of the cartridge, in case anyone recognizes it. Unfortunately, I have moved 2 years ago. I have lost the game, so I can't provide you with any screen caps. Sorry. The game started with the familiar Nanorino Gengar Antros Red and Blue version. However, the press start screen had been altered. Red was there, but the Pokemon did not cycle through. It also said Black version under the logo. Upon selecting new game, the game started with the Professor Oak speech, and it became quickly evident that the game was essentially Pokemon Red version. After selecting your starter, or if you looked at your Pokemon you had in addition to Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle, another Pokemon, Ghost. The Pokemon was level 1. It had the sprite of the ghosts that are encountered in Lavender Town before obtaining the Silph Scope, and it had one attack, Curse. I know that there is a real move named Curse, but the attack did not exist in Generation 1, so it appears it was hacked in. Defending Pokemon were unable to attack Ghost. It would only say that they were too scared to move. When the move Curse was used in battle, the screen would cut to black. The cry of the defending Pokemon would be heard, but was distorted, played at a much lower pitch than normal. The battle screen would then reappear, and the defending Pokemon would be gone. If used in battle against a trainer, or when the Pokeballs representing their Pokemon would appear, or in the corner, they would have one fewer Pokeball. The implication was that the Pokemon died. What's even stranger is that after defeating a trainer and seeing Red receive $200 for winning, the battle command would appear again. If you selected Run, the battle would end as it normally does. You could also select Curse. If you did, upon returning to the overworld, the trainer sprite would be gone. After leaving and re-entering the area, the spot where the trainer had been would be replaced with a tombstone, like the ones in Lavender Town, at Lavender Tower. The move Curse was not usable in all instances. It would fail against Ghost-type Pokemon. It would also fail if it was used against trainers that you would have to face again, such as your rival or Giovanni. It was useful in your final battle against them, however. I figured this was the gimmick to the game, allowing you to use the previously uncapturable ghosts, and because Curse has made the game so easy, I essentially used it throughout the whole adventure. The game changed quite a bit after defeating the Elite Four, after fearing the Hall of Fame, which consisted of his ghost and a couple Pokemon that I used for HMs. The screen cut to black. The box appears as with the words many years later. Then cut to Lavender Tower. An old man was standing, looking at tombstones. You then realized that this man was your character. The man moved at only half of your normal walking speed. You no longer had a Pokemon with you, not even Ghost, who up to this point had been possible to remove from your party through depositing it in the PC. The overworld was entirely empty. There were no people at all. There were still the tombstones of the trainers that you used to curse on, however. You could go pretty much anywhere in the overworld at this point. So considering your movement was limited by the fact that you had no Pokemon to use HMs, and regardless of where you went, the music of Lavender Town continued on as an infinite loop. After wandering for a while, I found that you can go through Diglett's cave. Once the cuttable bushes that normally blocks the path on the other side is no longer there, allowing you to advance and return to Pallet Town. Upon returning to your house and go to the exact point where you start the game, the screen would go to black. Then a sprite as a Caterpie appeared. It was replaced by a Weedle, and then a Pidgey. I soon realized as the Pokemon progressed from Rattata to Blastoise that these were all of the Pokemon that he had used curse on. At the end of my rivals team, a youngster appeared, and then a bug catcher. These were the trainers I had cursed. Throughout the sequence, the Lavender Town music was playing, but it was slowly decreasing in pitch. By the time your rival appeared on screen, it was little more than a demonic rumble. Another cut to black. A few minutes later, the battle screen instantly appeared. Your trainer sprite was now that of an old man. The same one, and that's the one who teaches you how to catch Pokemon in Viridian City. Ghost appeared on the other side, along with the words, "Ghost wants to fight." You can't use items. You had no Pokemon. If you tried to run, you couldn't escape. The only option was fight. Using fight would immediately cause you to use struggle, which didn't affect Ghost, but did chip off as a bit as your own hit points. When it was Ghost's turn to attack, it would simply say nothing. Eventually, when your HP reached a critical point, Ghost would finally use Curse. The screen cut to black for a final time. Regardless of the buttons you pressed, you're permanently stuck in this black screen. At this point, the only thing he could do was turn off the Game Boy. When he played the game, New Game was the only available option. The game had erased the file. I played through this hacked game many times, and every time the game ended with this sequence. Several times I didn't use Ghost at all. Though he was impossible to remove from the party. In these cases, it did not show any Pokemon or trainers, and simply cut to the climactic battle with Ghost. I'm not sure what motivates what the motives were behind the creators of this hack. It wasn't widely distributed, so it was presumably not for monetary gain. It was very well done for a bootleg. It seems he was trying to convey a message. So it seems I am the sole receiver of this message. I'm not entirely sure what it was. The inevitability of death? The pointlessness of it? Perhaps he was simply trying to morbidly inject death and darkness into a children's game. Regardless, this children's game made me think. And it has made me cry. So, that's it. 4 stories, even in 1 audio clip. Didn't think I would do that. But, hey, shows the goat that I can't do much. It's by bitching. Though, I would like to thank you for watching. If you made it this far. And this is Harold Baker signing off. To beach. You sons of funds.